What's up, guys? We're going to be looking at another NFL prop on the Outlier app. And for today's video, we're going to be looking at the longest reception prop. This is a very popular one. I use this one a lot looking for longest receptions. Dallas Goedert was my go-to guy last season, but there's a lot of other props this season, a lot of other guys, and we're going to dive into it. So first thing we're going to do is click the props tab on the bottom. As you can see, I like to select the last 10 games because it gives me a look into the very first game of the season and the last 9 of last season. You could also look at last 5 games, which is a good one too, but you could look at opponent rank, 2022, or just solely this season. Only one game so far for all teams, but we're going to go over here, scroll all the way to the top to longest reception. And for this video, we're going to be looking at Keenan Allen on LA Chargers. And if we take a look over here, he's covered this line in 5 straight games. If we look at last 5 or last 10, it will show games from this season and last season. But to start off this video, I'm going to show you guys his last season stats. He ended off last season with 5 straight games covering over 21.5 longest reception. And by the way, if you don't know what that prop means, it just means how many yards he got on any single one of his receptions that led to the largest amount of yards. So let's say he had 2 receptions. First one, he only covered 5 yards. Second one, he covered 23. His longest reception would be 23 yards. It's not the total amount of yards. It's the number of yards on the largest reception. So let's dive into it. Let's take a look at some of the supporting stats for last season. So he was averaging 73.9 receiving yards per game, which is really nice. And if we take a look over here, he was actually averaging the most near that middle end of the season and not many at the start of the season. And we take a look at another prop, another supporting stat that I really like, which is the reception/targets. Now, this is very important because obviously the more receptions he has, the higher chance he has to cover that over 21.5 longest reception. And the more targets he gets, the more chances at a reception. And yeah, so we're going to take a look. Start of last season, he barely had any targets, but then near that mid to end of last season, he had a lot of targets. 14, 9, 14, 6, 11, 13. So he was averaging a good amount of targets per game, 9.3 on the season. And if we take a look at the last 5, averaging 10.6 targets per game. And we take a look at more stuff such as yards per reception. This doesn't help a great amount because we kind of want, well, it does. It looks like he's averaging about 10 plus yards per reception, which is good. But the longest reception is not really dependent on his yards, or the longest reception isn't really dependent on the yards per reception. He could have 2, 3, 4 yards on 3 receptions and then 30 yards on another one. So we're going to keep looking over here. You could look at yards after catch and broken tackles, which he didn't have any. But we take a look at 2023 now, which was his first game of this season. And if we take a look, he had 36 yards on his longest reception. So we could look at the supporting stats for that as well, for that one game. He had 76 receiving yards. He had 9 targets, which is a good amount. If he gets anywhere between 9 plus, that's a good amount of targets. 6 receptions, which is a good amount for us to have a higher chance to cover this over. And yeah, you could look at the other supporting stats as well, but these 2 are the most important. And then lastly, I like to look at the matchup over here. If we take a look at the matchup, you can see the injuries. Bunch of injuries for the Chargers, a bunch for the Titans, but what I'm going to look at specifically is the Titans defensive ranking, and specifically for passing yards, because if we get more passing yards from the Chargers, that leads to more receptions overall for the team, hopefully more receptions for Keenan, and then that will lead to a higher chance of him getting more receptions on his longest yard or his longest reception. So we take a look, and they actually are bottom of the league in passing yard defense, averaging or allowing 274.8 yards per game, which is an insane amount. So that's great to see. It means that we have a good chance of Keenan getting a lot more receptions than if he was to face a team with a better defensive ranking. And I really like this prop after taking a look at that research. His last 5 games of the season last year and his first game of this season point towards him hopefully covering that over 21.5 receptions again. Make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel. Get your Outlier 7-day free trial on the iOS App Store. I'll see you guys in the future videos.